Well, hello everybody. I want to shoot this live. It's important. I have a second device. I want to show Hong Kong as it has been for the last 60 years. What the UK did in its colonial expansions around the world, the 100 years of UK administering Hong Kong, the most densest city in the world. Absence of all communists, you're going to hear from communists 13 years after the transition and how things are in Hong Kong today over the last 10 years. You're going to watch it with me. We're going to go through it. Folks, everything UK is about the New World Order, which is the old world order. You get to see how people live in Hong Kong today. You get to see the extremely wealthy and the absolute depraved aging population, the average citizen who makes a standard income, and how much of that they must give to live like animals. Coffin City as it really is, from the start all the way through to now today, which has not been reduced. Communists there, you have the mainland China Beijing regime, Xi Jinping. They are transitioning Hong Kong, but folks, the reality of how those people live is absolutely a UK design. You will see 60 years of history, buildings, and the utter sheer devastation to people's lives. We in Canada are heading there. I can tell you, as I've toured this country, no greater truth of this is in British Columbia, Vancouver, well on its way to this reality. You can go to Toronto, you can go to Montreal. These are places getting to this reality as we watch developers continually increase the value of square footage. Folks, we're 38 million people, all of us combined, in the largest landmass available to such a small population on the earth today. But yet our densities in many, many areas of Canada are extreme. Extreme. They rival places like New York and absolutely Los Angeles. How is that possible? The United States of America has 10 times the population, but much more land availability. And that's the key here. It's all about how much is made available to us in private property and how much is not. Canada has more than half the land availability than communist China, a hugely dense populated place in the world today. India as well too. They're big countries, nowhere near Canada's size, but it's an explosive population base, both areas. And you see the extreme wealthy and the extreme poor. Today, we're going to go through the extreme poor. I'm going to run that video on the second device for all of you. We're going to look at the Green New Deal that's being pushed upon us in our preamble. 1867, as it was then, it is and remains today. Your sovereignty, your design will match the United Kingdom and the royal family. If you've never been to the UK and seen that island state and the density of those people, you should go in your life. You should go check it out. That is the design and build all through the Commonwealth, regardless of the nature of your country, regardless of how big your country is. They take that away. They call it crown land. Politicians administer it, and they keep all of the peoples off it. And they put you into dense regions to mimic the United Kingdom island state. First, second, third class, that's the way you're to live. And the richer you make that first class, the worse it is for the second and third class. So without further ado, watch and we'll talk about the contents of the video after. Hang on to your seats. This is really how it is. This is the reality of first, second class explosive designs of the Crown Colonial United Kingdom.
Once the glittering jewel in Britain's colonial crown, Hong Kong still dazzles after 12 years of Chinese rule. Asia's world city, as it brands itself, boasts 19 billionaires and more Louis Vuitton shops than London or Paris. High in its towers are some of the most glamorous apartments in the world. But there is another side to this city.
Actually, in Hong Kong, we have two worlds in one city. I think it's just like you go to another world. It's not Hong Kong.
Zilai Shan is a local rights activist, and she's taking me on a tour of the Hong Kong that tourists don't see.
Just wait a moment.
She's worried because the tenants here are as camera shy as they are poor.
You don't film those people they are paying mahjong, it's okay. Yeah.
Eventually, we're ushered in.
To visit the elderly.
What you're looking at are cages. Not for animals, but people. Old people mostly. And this is their entire world, with room for only a few prized possessions. 79-year-old Dai Yuan Po has lived this way for 30 years. Does he consider this home?
I don't know. 喂，想問你啊，你係咪話呢度當係你屋企㗎啦 ？Yes, yes.
Home for 30 years.
Yeah.
Dai Yuan Po has no family to care for him. He's applied for public housing, but the likelihood is that he'll remain here, sharing with 10 other men in the only real home he's ever known. So from here,
Yeah.
from just where my finger is,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
here to
Yeah.
here
Yeah.
is 6 foot, and the width of the bed is just 2.5 feet. To add insult to injury, the rent isn't even cheap for such tiny spaces. Dai Yuan Po is paying $12 Australian a month per square foot. That's more than the rate per square foot for some luxury apartments here. Most of these men are on welfare. Rent eats up more than a third of that, leaving just $13 a day for everything else.
Many of the cage dweller, they cannot afford 3 meals a day because they need to save money to buy the toilet paper, even buy water sometimes, because some of them they don't have kitchen or do not have facility to afford water, something like that.
It's a sweltering night. Even at 8 p.m., the temperature remains above 30 degrees. The walls tell you the age of the building. In this case, 60 years, ancient by Hong Kong standards, and approved as housing by the government. The United Nations says cage homes are unacceptable, calling them an insult to human dignity. So in 2009, this is the way that hundreds of people still live in Hong Kong. And those who are campaigning to eradicate these sorts of dwellings say they could be around for decades to come.
No, I gotta change the ad, guys. Don't worry. Skip. That's Hong Kong retirement, folks. 2009.
Zilai Shan works for the Society for Community Organisation. She spent 13 years helping Hong Kong's poor and downtrodden. And this notoriously rough Kowloon neighbourhood is her beat. thousands of urban slum dwellers. The bulk are the working poor. Others include the mentally ill and drug addicts.
I think you cannot stand inside because you're too tall.
As well as a mother and young child. Living not in a cage, but what the government euphemistically calls a cubicle home. A space not much bigger than a king-size bed.
She go to school?
Yeah.
Oh, you speak English?
8-year-old Jessica Lamb is a bright, cheerful child, despite her surroundings, where the TV competes with the rice cooker for pride of place.
我喺呢度住有咩感覺啊？生活
好煩啊！你知唔知我翻到嚟就一翻嚟我就想發脾氣嘅。係啊，我覺得佢成間屋冚住我嗰種感覺，你明唔明？
Beyond the dwelling's suffocatingly small size, there's the fire threat posed by the maze of exposed electrical wires. Hygiene is another worry. The bathroom also serves as the kitchen. Just about everything has to be shared with the other cubicle dwellers on their floor.
Around 20 people use the same toilet. 20 people.
20 people use it.
Yeah, yeah.
你中唔中意？
超級中意。上次樓上嗰啲人仲掉咗嗰隻洗老鼠，幾恐怖。
我淨係覺得以後都喺度啊，都 OK。唔得，我真係暈啊！我真係癲。係啊。諗住真係可以申請公屋咁咯。可以即係有可以申請公屋，快啲批公屋咁咯。而喺度我真係覺得好煩啊！我以前住嘅地方啊，洗手間都大過呢度啊。
Mrs. Lamb came here from mainland China, looking for an improved life for her family and a better school for her daughter. Her husband and son are still on the mainland, and she hasn't seen them for months. I asked Mrs. Lamb how life in China compared with this.
好難去諗啊，係嘛？係咯。你掛唔掛住鄉下？掛。你掛住我都冇。
What she misses most is her son. What the charity worries about most is Jessica's welfare.
I think I need to help this girl to have to be rehoused as soon as possible. They cannot live in this, grow up in this kind of condition.
The next day, we return to Jessica's home. Her mother's just leaving for her afternoon job at a local 7-Eleven, where she earns less than $4 an hour. For the next 6 hours, Jessica will be alone. During school holidays, most afternoons are spent watching television. The corridor is her playground, but there's no one here to play with.
奇怪，係因為咧未住過呢度啊嘛，啲梯咧我咧覺得咧好似危險咗少少，不過耐啲咧都隔得唔係幾危險。呢度咧可能窄咗少少啊，而且咧企都企唔到啊，呢度企得到噶嘛。
Dwarfing Jessica's apartment block is a glittering new addition to the Hong Kong skyline. It's a shopping mall that's about as far removed from Jessica's world as it's possible to get, even if it's right next door.
Why in Hong Kong, such a rich society, we still have people live in cage home is because actually the poverty issue in Hong Kong is getting worse. The gap between the rich and the poor is getting big.
Hong Kong's per capita income is now higher than Switzerland's. But despite the city's wealth, social workers estimate that at least 100,000 people now live in cubicles, cages and partition dwellings. Many have been forced into such conditions by the current economic slowdown, but the government is doing little to help. Zilai Shan's organisation is trying to pressure Hong Kong's rulers into action. Today, at this press conference, it's highlighting the plight of those living below the poverty line. And Jessica is playing a starring role.
次次晚上咧都係有啲曱甴咁樣有時啊啲曱甴爬到手嗰度啊，我又好驚咯。
Later, the cameramen are invited to see for themselves the way Jessica and her mother now live.
Take a rice first, and then I call you.
It suddenly feels very crowded. Despite repeated approaches, the Hong Kong government refused our request for an interview about K-Chones. But in a statement, it insisted it had no plans to phase out such accommodation, telling Dateline, people choose to live in bed space apartments and cubicles because these apartments, apart from commanding a low rental level, are mostly conveniently located in the urban areas. Hence, there is still a demand for this type of private accommodation.
Sorry, ads, hold on.
That I get to help people. I remember this.
To its credit, the government is building new public housing, 15,000 apartments a year, but it's just not enough.
You know, the waiting list for the public housing is over 100,000. And I can't see that 15,000 units per year can solve the problem.
Frederick Fung King Kee is one of 30 directly elected legislators to Hong Kong's 60-member mini-parliament. He says the government should do what it did 20 years ago when it removed the last of the notorious squatter camps.
And actually, we do solve it. You see, there's no squatter areas in Hong Kong now. We should have that sort of mindset.
But despite his good intentions, Frederick Fung doesn't have the power to change government policy. Zilai Shan says that with only half of the parliament directly elected, Hong Kong's rulers have little fear of public accountability.
One of the problems is our government, the chief executive or many of the lawmaker, legislative councillor, they are not elected by universal suffrage. So the poor, they have no right to vote. And so the privilege, the government don't need to listen to the voice of the poor.
Jessica's getting ready for her first day back at school after the long summer holiday. Her mother's already left for work. Breakfast is a few digestive biscuits and a small bottle of milk. Unless she and her mother are given public housing, the choices facing them are bleak. Jessica's already spent a year of her childhood living in a cage. The length of Hong Kong's waiting list for public housing means she could still be in one when she's a teenager.
Folks, that is 2009. That isn't communist Hong Kong. Hong Kong belonged to the UK for that 100 years. That was a decision made in the Opium Wars. China lost. China went communist, but not Hong Kong. That isn't communism. That is a parliamentary system based on the exact same design as Canada. That's Crown, Colonial, Hong Kong. That wasn't communism you're watching. That is a city in the Crown Colonial design, the exact same design as Canada. We're in this immense country. China's pretty immense too. Huge population, but mainland China, if you listen to that woman, she came from mainland China communism to go work in the city as they're doing recruitment drives, and that's how her and her daughter ended up. Her bathroom at home in mainland China was larger than where she totally living conditions are there. A king-sized area. This is in our preamble of Canada's Constitution to design our country exactly like the UK model, an island state. We're a massive, massive chunk of a continent and a very small population. What happened to Hong Kong was absolutely cramming more and more people into a tighter area, driving up the values of the land, artificially inflating land values. Developers, everybody getting rich decade after decade, compounding the value of land and shitty buildings like that aren't worth 50 cents comparatively per square foot to what they were charging $12 a square foot. Did you see those buildings? That is all too common in Hong Kong even today, even with communist China going through it. Hong Kong's going through a transition back to communism. Now, I don't support communism. Never. I believe in property rights. You can't believe in property rights and release land in private property and be a communist. You can't. I don't support communism, but I don't support artificially inflating land in a vast, vast country the size of Canada with such a small population, making literally land values so hyperinflated, nobody can do anything but start transitioning into multi-people living in a single unit dwelling, meaning apartments with multiple families or multiple people. Canada says, oh, we'll never get to that. Well, tell that to the many Torontonians and the many British Columbians who are priced completely out of the market. Folks, today, every day, Canada continues to raise interest rates. They just did another one. Inflation isn't slowing down because you need energy. You've got to eat. You need a roof over your head, and you've got to pay and travel to work. These items can't be restricted. You can give up your job. You can not go to work, I suppose. You can stop eating, but we all know you will die. That is not a real functioning system. Canada no longer functions for a vast amount of the population. When you take Ontario, British Columbia, and big chunks of Quebec together below the 49th parallel, and absolutely Vancouver, you're already 60% of the Canadian population. Now, Canada, in the UK model of Crown colonialism, adopts a massive immigration program. By 2036, government statistics, government's stats 150, the government statistical analysis, almost 50% of all children going to school by 2036 will be first generation immigrants, meaning none of them were even born in Canada. If you look at the story of Hong Kong throughout all its years, this is a rinse and repeat strategy. That's the model. UK financially does very well through the Crown and those civil societies and corporations attached, transitioning wealth from a mass amount of people into their hands, their companies, their coffers. Meanwhile, a big chunk of this foreign population suffers. They continue colonialism, modern colonialism, picking up people from other areas to displace the local population. No resistance. People find every month after month, prices continue to rise for food, clothing, shelter, transportation, energy, and food. These are things people can't live without. There is no inflationary system that can stop that when you artificially cram more and more people into less area. You will drive all these things up. The demand grows artificially. This is what's wrong with Crown and colonialism. Your government is corrupt. If people don't see this as a bad system, it's 950 years old. Many countries have had to move away from it. It doesn't work. I don't want to go to communism. I want to see all the crown land removed from these elite divine politicians and given to the First Peoples and Canadians. Anyone who doesn't want to do that, you've got to question, are you the communist or are you the crown elite institutionalized citizen that isn't really a citizen? You're defined as a subject. This is what we have to get across. This is what we have to share, get out to so many people. That situation in Hong Kong is starting to materialize in its infancy in places like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. It won't be long before they're in those conditions. It won't be long before it starts affecting all of Canada in these little dense pockets. It's absolutely Ontario for the GTA and greater area. People already know there. Vancouver, people already know there. You can see it. It's physically there. That's my video. Share, share, share. Get it out there. It's huge. It's got to be shared. If we don't share, people will just keep going. You will see a vast majority of Canadians embrace that system. You will see it. People say, oh, there'll be a row. I won't allow it to happen. 1,000 times your population allowed it to happen over 60 years. And it just keeps continuing, and continuing. It won't stop. That's my video. Share, share, share. Get it out there. Bye now.